Europe through the eyes of Russian propaganda, dwarfs, a gangster, and a dancing kitten. The Bolshaya Igra TV show, which is considered one of the Kremlin's flagship mouthpieces, once again demonstrated how Russian propaganda constructs the image of Europe and Ukraine. The occasion was the visit of Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders to Washington after the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska. Humiliation as the main technique. From the first minutes of the broadcast, the viewer is imposed a system of coordinates. Europe is Euro-dwarfs, and the Ukrainian president is a dancing kitten who was allegedly thrown out of the White House in February. Such vocabulary serves two purposes. Firstly, it deprives Europe and Ukraine of a political subject. If the leaders are dwarves, their decisions do not matter. Secondly, constant ridicule creates the illusion of Russia's moral superiority. Contrast: Alaska versus Washington. The hosts spent most of the broadcast contrasting the two events. The Putin-Trump summit in Anchorage was equal leaders of great powers, red carpets, and a military parade. Trump's meeting with Zelensky and European politicians in the White House were satraps and satellites who fawned over the American president. Thus, the viewer is instilled with the idea that real diplomacy only happens where Russia is present, and Europe is just a second-rate decoration. Trump is ours. Europe is superfluous. Particular emphasis was placed on the episode when Trump allegedly interrupted negotiations with the Europeans to call Putin. From a propaganda perspective, this is a symbol. America recognizes Russia as an equal partner and ignores the EU. For the domestic audience, this looks like a diplomatic victory for Moscow. And for Europe, it looks like an attempt to undermine confidence in its own influence in transatlantic relations. And if we talk about the root causes of the conflict, well, it is clear that we are talking about NATO expansion, we are talking about military infrastructure and so on, but all this is rather a manifestation of the main root cause. And the main root cause is that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Westerners began to nurture nationalist, not even anti-Russian, but anti-Russian forces, nurture them, take them into their military machine, and deploy them along the borders of Russia. That is, the root cause of the conflict is the creation of these endless anti-Russian bookmarks along the Russian western border. And the position of these Europeans shows that they do not want to move away from this root cause. Therefore, their position on these pseudo-guarantees of security is simultaneously a position because they do not want to remove the root causes of the conflict. And from my point of view, these two issues are really very closely interconnected. Tell me, are there any other examples where Russia says it is necessary to limit the army? Not in relation to our allies, not in relation to our enemies. This is the only example. Why? Because this regime does not meet the people's expectations. A caricature of Europe. Any proposals by Europeans, such as Emmanuel Macron's words about security guarantees for Ukraine, are ridiculed. Macron is presented as a warmonger. His phrase about boots on the ground is turned into a nursery rhyme. Talk, nightmare, cook, I'm not. Listening to you, I'll eat you for lunch. Thus, the serious topic of the continent's security is translated into a grotesque, where Europe is deprived of seriousness and political weight. The culmination of the discussion is a return to the fundamental cause of the conflict, according to Moscow, allegedly to the fact that after the collapse of the USSR, the West nurtured anti-Russian forces along the borders. This is the key mantra. The war is explained not by the Kremlin's aggression, but by the imposed threat from NATO and the EU. The whole story with the Euro-dwarfs and the dapple kitten is just a decoration for this message. The main goal is obvious. Moscow wants to cement in the minds of viewers the idea that real diplomacy is a dialogue between the US and Russia, and that Europe and Ukraine are merely supporting actors. Such rhetoric not only devalues European subjectivity, but also seeks to drive a wedge into transatlantic unity. Russian television consistently undermines trust in Europe, presenting it as a humiliated and dependent player.